Could the Seattle Seahawks be in the trade market involving quarterback Geno Smith? We begin a new era of Seahawks football under new head coach Mike Macdonald. You already moved on from Pete Carroll. Could QB Geno Smith be the next to go? If he is, we have a list of the top potential trade destinations of where Geno Smith could ultimately end up, if it's not Seattle, in 2024. We'll go over that list in just a moment. Folks, I can't thank you enough. We reached 50,000 subscribers on the channel this week. An incredible milestone. It's humbling. Me and Smitty, we work our asses off to bring you the best Seahawks coverage we can each and every day, and you guys are worth it all. We cannot do this without you, and we're not stopping there. I want to get 50 subs off today's video. I want to make that happen today. We're the only place on the internet bringing you daily coverage with news and rumors, live shows, Q&A mailbags, talking draft, free agency, trades, and more. Sub it up. Join the family right now. Let's get 50 subs off today's video. We'll get started with today's show. So, first and foremost, if you recall the reporting from a week ago from ESPN's Adam Schefter, although the Seahawks came to terms with Geno Smith as far as picking up his team option, they haven't fully publicly committed to Geno Smith. They hinted at that they are willing to take phone calls on their quarterback, that they are open for business about a potential move with Geno Smith. Brady Henderson of ESPN, who covers the Seahawks, had the following to say. The Seahawks believed that with salaries soaring for starting quarterbacks in today's market, the right decision was to guarantee Smith's $12.7 million, sources told Adam Schefter. Now Smith will represent a value to them or any other team that decides to reach out if it can acquire Smith via trade. So the Seahawks, what they did was they said, hey, we'll pay this money for now. We'll commit to you for the short term, but we haven't figured out what we're going to do with you long term. And if you're the Seattle Seahawks, for me personally, when it comes to Geno Smith, if I'm John Schneider and somebody is picking up the phone saying, I got a third-round pick for you if you give me Geno Smith, I'm saying thank you. He is all yours. At this point, the Seattle Seahawks, remember, they got Geno for basically next to nothing, right? It wasn't supposed to work out this well the way it did with him being a back-to-back two-time Pro Bowler, right? You will gladly take that and move on to the next chapter. Geno, we always knew, was a stopgap quarterback, a bridge quarterback of sorts. It has been a good run. I think no one can complain about what Seattle has gotten out of Geno Smith for the little they've had to pay. And if you can flip that to a third-round pick and go get your quarterback of the future and start over again, to me, that makes a ton of sense for the Seattle Seahawks. Because here's the bottom line when it comes to Geno, right? The first year was fantastic with him as the starter. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Geno was outstanding. This past year was a step in the wrong direction. He played better in the second half of the year, but still was held to just 20 touchdowns and 9 picks. His completion percentage went down. His yardage number went down. He was banged up a little bit more than he was the first year prior. Is this trend going to continue? As Geno gets older, is it going to get worse? So, with that said, let's ask you now, should the Seahawks trade Geno Smith? Our pinned comment today. Y for yes, N for no. Let us know what you think if it's time to move on from Geno Smith or not. All right, let's go through the trade destinations. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that actually beat the Seattle Seahawks this past season. And you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a team that doesn't have their quarterback situation figured out. Kenny Pickett got injured and did not finish the season. Mason Rudolph came in, kind of provided a spark for that team, but they don't really have a clear direction of what they're going to go, if it's Pickett or if it's Mason Rudolph. But nonetheless, if we're comparing him to Kenny Pickett, Geno would be an upgrade. And this is a Steelers team that has a very good defense. They got some good weapons on that offense. When you talk about George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and the run game with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, they very well might be a quarterback away from contending. And Geno could be the difference that puts the Steelers over the top to put them in the category of one of the better teams in the AFC. Here's the trade breakdown of what the Steelers potentially have to offer. They don't have a ton of cap space. They got to figure this out right now, as they are under $12 million on the cap situation. But next year, they got a ton of cap space. $129 plus million in 2025. And as far as potential assets the Steelers could give up, it includes the number 20 overall pick, the number 51 overall pick, and the number 84 overall pick as well. I have 4 more teams to get to in just a moment, but I want to ask you guys, where will Geno Smith play quarterback next season? Is it back in Seattle? Is it Pittsburgh? Or is it somewhere else? Drop the location in the comment section where you think Geno Smith is going to play quarterback in 2024. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose 2 or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points, maybe it's yardage, maybe it's strikeouts. You can mix and match different leagues from the NBA, MLB, NHL, golf, NASCAR, and more. I got my Rodriguez special here for you. We're going with our guy Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners to have more than 168.5 hits this season. Also got Grayson Rodriguez of the Baltimore Orioles to have more than 180.5 strikeouts. If both those hit, we put $20 down. We are making $60 on Prize Picks. Play along with me. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Go Mariners! Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders begin a new era of football in Vegas with their new head coach, Antonio Pierce. And they got to find a quarterback. Ed O'Connell sure as hell ain't that guy. Jimmy G, who's suspended, and I guess the steroids weren't working on Jimmy G somehow. He isn't the answer they're looking for either. Geno Smith could provide a nice spark potentially for that Raiders offense. You have Devontae Adams. We know Geno's a good deep ball passer. You get him involved in that Raiders offense, that might be what they're looking for. The Raiders have a ton of cap space. Over $42 million to be exact for this upcoming season. And then the year following, they have even more as it triples. $122 million in 2025. And they have trade assets as well, as they have a first-round pick this year at 13th overall, a second-round pick at 42 overall, and a third-round pick at 73 overall. The next team on our list, we are turning our attention to the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have a brand-new head coach in Raheem Morris coming in. This is a Falcons team that's stacked with a lot of talent, from the likes of Kyle Pitts to Drake London to Bijan Robinson, but they need a quarterback to get them the football. You look at that division, that is the worst division in the NFL, bar none, no question about it, the NFC South. They are a quarterback away from being the favorites in that division. You add Geno Smith, that could be exactly what the Atlanta Falcons are looking for to put them over the top, to all of a sudden be one of the better teams in the NFC. Falcons have cap space as well, close to $30 million this upcoming year. And then the year following, man, you talk about cash, they got it. Jumps up to $163 million. And then what about assets? Well, they got those too. The 8th overall pick in this year's draft, 43rd overall pick, and then not one but 2 third-round picks at 74 and at 79 potentially there. Next up, we find the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are an interesting situation because their star player, one of the best players in the NFL, maybe the best receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson, does not have a new contract yet. And they're in an interesting situation because you think about Kirk Cousins, who he and Jefferson have been a really good 1-2 punch the last couple seasons. He's coming off injury. He's still not going to be cheap. He's going to demand a decent amount of money on the open market. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, you might not be able to afford to pay both Cousins and Justin Jefferson. So you might have to choose one or the other, and you're taking Jefferson each and every day. So if Cousins is out, then what are you going to do? Maybe that's where Geno could be your solution here. You look at the cap space situation. Vikings have about $28 million, but that number is a bit deceiving when you talk about what they're going to have to pay here pretty soon. Next year, that number jumps up to $147 million. Oh, and you look at the trade assets. They have a first-round pick at 11th overall, a second-round pick at 42, but they do not have a third-round pick. Their first pick of that fourth round comes at 109. Got one more team to get to on the potential trade destinations for Geno Smith, but I want to hear from you guys. Who will be Seattle's starting quarterback in 2024? Will it be Geno Smith? Will it be somebody else? Let us know in the comment section. Get your predictions in. Tell us who you think will be under center for Seattle in 2024. Last on our list, this is going to be a funny one for a lot of folks out there, the Denver Broncos. It didn't work for them. The Russell Wilson experiment, that trade blew up in their face. And it would be hilarious to do another trade where you just rattle the cages of the Denver Broncos and win another trade again, if you're able to pull this off. Denver needs a quarterback. They don't have a ton of money to spend because of all the dead cap they're going to have to pay Russell Wilson here in a moment. They have $24 million right now, but that number is a bit deceiving. Their 2025 cap space is about $104 million. But then you look at some draft capital here. It's a team that's got the 12th overall pick. They have a third-round pick at 76 and a fourth-round pick at 122. Maybe, if Denver is looking for a veteran option, Geno could potentially be their guy. So to recap, our potential trade destinations for Geno Smith if the Seahawks ultimately decide to move on. Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Denver. Thanks for stopping by here on this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today. Subscribe to the channel now. If Geno gets traded, you know we're going to talk about it here on the channel. We'll go live if it happens, so stay alert for that. Subscribe now. Lock us in. We'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today.